What if I told you that behind the ancient walls of Vatican City lies one of the most secretive financial institutions in the world? A bank so mysterious that for decades, even its balance sheets were considered sacred secrets. A bank that's been linked to murder, the Mafia, and some of the most powerful intelligence agencies on Earth. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're diving deep into the hidden empire of the Vatican Bank. But before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because this story has more plot twists than a Hollywood thriller. So what exactly is the Vatican Bank? Officially, it's called the Institute for the Works of Religion, or IOR in Italian. Founded in 1942 by Pope Pius XII during World War II, it was originally created to manage the Catholic Church's assets and handle the accounts of religious orders, clergy, and Vatican employees. But here's where it gets interesting. The Vatican Bank isn't just any bank. It operates within Vatican City, the world's smallest country at just 110 acres. And because Vatican City is a sovereign nation, the bank has historically operated outside the jurisdiction of Italian or European Union financial regulations. Think about that for a moment. A bank in the heart of Europe that for decades answered to almost no one but the Pope himself. The bank doesn't have traditional branches or ATMs. You can't just walk in and open a checking account. Access is restricted to Vatican employees, Catholic clergy, religious orders, and Vatican-related institutions. It's essentially a private bank for the Catholic Church's inner circle. But to understand why this bank became so controversial, we need to go back further in history. For over 1,000 years, the Catholic Church wasn't just a religious institution, it was a political and economic superpower. The Pope ruled the Papal States, a huge territory across central Italy, generating massive wealth through taxes, trade, and tithes from across Christian Europe. Then, in 1870, everything changed. The newly unified Kingdom of Italy seized the Papal States, and the Pope became what was called the prisoner of the Vatican, confined to the tiny Vatican grounds, with no country to rule and no consistent income. This standoff lasted nearly 60 years until 1929, when Mussolini and Pope Pius XI signed the Lateran Treaty. The Church gave up claims to the Papal States, and in return, Italy paid the Vatican 750 million lire and 1 billion lire in Italian government bonds, worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. This windfall needed to be managed and invested. But the Church had a problem. How do you maintain and grow enormous wealth while preaching spiritual poverty? How do you operate in modern financial markets while maintaining the appearance of being above worldly concerns? The solution was to create a bank that operated in the shadows. And for decades, that's exactly what the Vatican Bank did. So how much money are we talking about? The exact figures have traditionally been murky, but recent reforms have forced more transparency. The Vatican Bank manages approximately 5 to 6 billion euros in assets. Now that might not sound huge compared to major international banks, but remember, this is just one piece of the Vatican's financial empire. The Holy See's total wealth is difficult to calculate. There's the Vatican Bank, yes, but also massive real estate holdings around the world, priceless art collections, including works by Michelangelo and Raphael that could never actually be sold, global investments, and donations from 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide. Some estimates place the Catholic Church's total global wealth at over $100 billion, though the exact figure remains one of the world's best-kept secrets. Where does the money come from? Multiple sources: donations from dioceses worldwide, returns on investments, fees for banking services, and Peter's pence, a direct donation from Catholics to the Pope for charitable works. Though recent scandals have revealed that Peter's pence hasn't always been used as donors intended. Investigations found that millions meant for charity were instead used to plug budget deficits and even to buy luxury apartments in London. Now here's where our story takes a dark turn, and we need to talk about the man who became the face of Vatican banking corruption. His name was Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, and he was known as the Gorilla, a 6'4" former bodyguard from Chicago who rose to become the head of the Vatican Bank from 1971 to 1989. Marcinkus was the ultimate insider, a trusted advisor to multiple popes, and according to investigators, possibly one of the most corrupt officials in Vatican history. Marcinkus once famously said, "You can't run the church on Hail Marys." His philosophy seemed to be that the church needed money, and he wasn't particularly concerned about where it came from or how it was obtained. Under Marcinkus, the Vatican Bank became entangled with some of the most dangerous people in Europe. In 1982, a banker named Roberto Calvi was found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge in London, his pockets filled with bricks and cash. Calvi was chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, Italy's largest private bank, which had deep ties to the Vatican Bank under Marcinkus. When Banco Ambrosiano collapsed, $1.3 billion went missing, and much of it had passed through Vatican Bank accounts. Calvi became known as God's banker because of his Vatican connections. His death was initially ruled a suicide, but the evidence told a different story. Why would a man committing suicide carefully fill his pockets with bricks? Why was he hanging from scaffolding in a specific location? Many believed it was a Mafia hit, a message sent to others who knew too much. The investigation revealed that Calvi and Marcinkus had created a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts. Money was being laundered for the Sicilian Mafia, for a secret Masonic lodge called Propaganda Due, or P2, that included politicians, military officers, and intelligence agents, and allegedly even for the CIA. Here's where it gets even stranger. During the Cold War, the Vatican Bank reportedly became a conduit for covert operations. There are allegations that the CIA used Vatican Bank channels to funnel money to the Solidarity movement in Poland, helping to destabilize the communist government. The Vatican had its own reasons for opposing communism, and suddenly the interests of the Church, American intelligence, and anti-communist forces aligned perfectly. Archbishop Marcinkus was indicted by Italian authorities in connection with the Banco Ambrosiano scandal, but he never faced trial. Why? Because he remained inside Vatican City, protected by its sovereignty. Italy couldn't extradite him, and the Vatican refused to hand him over. He eventually retired quietly to Arizona, where he lived until his death in 2006, never having faced justice. But Marcinkus wasn't the only problem. The entire culture of secrecy at the Vatican Bank had created an environment where corruption could flourish. For decades, the Vatican Bank was accused of being used for money laundering by organized crime, corrupt politicians, and tax evaders. Its secrecy and lack of oversight made it the perfect place to hide illicit funds. Account holders were protected by banking secrecy laws even stricter than Switzerland's. In 2010, Italian authorities seized 23 million euros from a Vatican bank account as part of a money laundering investigation. This was a wake-up call that couldn't be ignored. The modern financial world was demanding transparency, and the Vatican could no longer hide behind its walls. Even in recent years, the problems continue. In 2013, a Vatican accountant was arrested at the Italian border, trying to smuggle 20 million euros into Italy from Switzerland on a private jet. In 2020, Vatican police raided offices within the Vatican itself, investigating financial irregularities involving the purchase of a luxury property in London's Chelsea neighborhood. The deal involved hundreds of millions of dollars, suspicious middlemen taking enormous commissions, and funds that were supposed to be used for charity. This scandal reached all the way to Cardinal Pius, one of the most powerful officials in the Vatican, who was eventually convicted in 2023 of embezzlement and sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. This marked the first time a cardinal had been convicted of a financial crime by a Vatican court. These weren't just financial mishaps. They were full-blown scandals involving cardinals, monsignors, and Vatican officials at the highest levels, revealing that even after decades of promises to clean up, the problems persisted. The scandals finally forced real change. When Pope Benedict XVI took office, he began implementing financial reforms, but the real transformation came under Pope Francis. Francis, who chose his name after Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of poverty, made cleaning up Vatican finances a priority. He understood that the Church's moral authority was being destroyed by financial corruption. He's been quoted as saying, "The Vatican Bank needs to be a bank for the poor, not the rich." And Francis didn't just talk about reform, he took dramatic action. Key reforms included closing thousands of suspicious accounts, implementing anti-money laundering measures, hiring international financial experts from outside the Vatican's traditional circles, submitting to external audits for the first time in history, and joining international financial transparency agreements. In 2013, the Vatican Bank closed nearly 3,000 accounts that didn't meet new standards. They weren't all criminal, but the message was clear. The days of secrecy were over. Some of these accounts belonged to powerful cardinals, bishops, and Vatican officials who had enjoyed private banking privileges for decades. The Vatican also created new oversight bodies, including a financial information authority, to monitor transactions and ensure compliance with international standards. They hired a former director of Italy's central bank and professionals from major financial institutions to bring Vatican banking into the modern era. Pope Francis even established a special commission to investigate the Vatican Bank and determine whether it should continue to exist at all. The commission ultimately recommended keeping it, but with massive reforms. For the first time, the Vatican Bank began publishing annual reports with detailed financial information. It started cooperating with international authorities on money laundering investigations. It implemented systems to detect suspicious activity and report it to proper authorities. So where does the Vatican Bank stand today? It's definitely more transparent than at any point in its history. It now publishes annual reports, cooperates with international authorities, and has systems to detect suspicious activity. The bank has significantly reduced its number of accounts, focusing on its core mission of serving church institutions rather than being a general private bank for well-connected individuals. But questions remain. Some critics argue the reforms don't go far enough. Others wonder if the culture of secrecy is truly gone, or just better hidden. The Cardinal Pius scandal, which came to light after the reforms were supposedly in place, suggests that old habits die hard within the Vatican. There's also a fundamental theological question here. The Vatican Bank exists in this strange intersection between spiritual authority and worldly wealth. Jesus famously said, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." Yet the church he founded now manages billions. This tension isn't new. The Catholic Church has grappled with wealth and power for 2,000 years. From the sale of indulgences that sparked the Protestant Reformation to today's financial scandals, the question of money has always challenged the Church's spiritual mission. But in our modern era of financial transparency and instant information, the scrutiny is more intense than ever. Every transaction can potentially be traced. Every scandal can go viral in hours. The Vatican can no longer operate in the shadows the way it once did. The Vatican Bank's future likely depends on continuing reforms, maintaining transparency, and proving that it can serve the Church's charitable mission without becoming entangled in scandal. Some have even suggested that perhaps the bank should be dissolved entirely, that the Catholic Church should divest itself of direct banking operations and instead use conventional banks for its financial needs. The Vatican Bank remains one of the most fascinating financial institutions in the world. It's a place where faith meets finance, where ancient religious authority meets modern banking, and where some of history's most bizarre scandals have unfolded. From mysterious deaths under London bridges to Mafia money laundering, from CIA Cold War operations to cardinals on trial, the story of the Vatican Bank shows us that even the most sacred institutions aren't immune to corruption, but also that change is possible when the pressure for transparency becomes impossible to resist. What do you think? Should the Vatican Bank exist at all? Are the reforms enough, or is the entire concept fundamentally flawed? Can an institution that preaches spiritual values effectively manage billions in worldly wealth? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to check out our other videos on hidden financial empires and historical mysteries. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.